greatest gift that you have been given, every single one of us, is the gift of your imagination. If you advance confidently in the direction of your own dreams, your dreams, and endeavor to live the life which you have imagined in your imagination, you will meet with a success unexpected in common hours. It will chase after you. You have to know that. It's the famous story of the cat and the kitten. The little kitten is out in the alley and he's chasing his tail, and chasing and chasing and chasing and chasing and chasing his tail, which is what little kittens do. And this old alley cat comes up to it and says, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I just returned from cat philosophy school. And in cat philosophy school, we learned two things. That number one, the most important thing for a cat is happiness. And number two, that happiness is located in my tail. So I have figured out if I can get a grip on it and get a hold of it, and once I get a hold of this thing, I'll have a lock on eternal happiness." And the old cat looked at it and said, "You know, I've never had the same privileges you had. Didn't get to go to school, lived out here in the alleys most of my life." He said, "But it's amazing. I learned the same thing that you did in school. I learned that indeed the most important thing for a cat is happiness, and also I learned that it's located in my tail." He said, "The only difference between you and I is that I've discovered that when I do the things that I have imagined and live the life that I want to live, it follows after me wherever I go." It follows after me wherever I go. And all I can say to you is that I live this, and I know that. And Maslow taught it to me when I was just a young doctoral student in my 20s. And it was this whole idea that when you detach from outcome and you fulfill your passion and you listen to your heart, that you will get the guidance that you desire as long as you stay aligned with the way that God thinks. This is why I think most of us aren't able to move past ordinary levels of consciousness, because we are not thinking the way our source thinks, which is, how may I serve instead of what's in it for me? Which is, what may I do for you instead of how much am I going to get? Which is, how can I offer you what I have? How can I make for you how can I want for you the happiness that I seek? How can I want it more for you than I do for myself? That's what meaning is. The end of the shift and the beginning of the shift has this quote. The Bushmen in the Kalahari Desert talk about two hungers. There is the great hunger and there is the little hunger. The little hunger wants food for the belly, but the great hunger, the greatest hunger of all, is the hunger for meaning. There's ultimately only one thing that makes human beings deeply and profoundly bitter, and that is to have thrust upon them a life without meaning. There's nothing wrong in searching for happiness, but of far more comfort to the soul is something greater than happiness or unhappiness, and that is meaning. Because meaning transfigures all. Once what you are doing has for you meaning, it is irrelevant whether you're happy. You are content. You are not alone. In your spirit, you belong. I can say to you honestly, as I stand up here in my 70th year, that applies to me. I feel that what I am doing right here in this moment is fulfilling a dharma that I signed up for before I ever showed up here and that spark took place. It's almost as if God said to me, "What do you want to do in this lifetime?" And I said, "I would like to teach self-reliance." And God said, "It's a whole lifetime just doing that?" I said, "Yeah, I'd really like to teach people that in this lifetime." And God said, "Then we better get your little ass into an orphanage." And you'll learn to rely upon yourself. And once you experience that, no one will ever be able to dissuade you. And what I'm saying to you now in these next few moments is that I know, I don't just believe it, I live it and feel it in here. I know that I am capable of, and every one of you are capable of, because we're all pieces of God. that we all know everything, and we're all powerful, and that whatever we put our intention on, if we stay aligned up here and think and act this way rather than down here, being consumed with our greed, that whatever it is you would like to attract into your life, you do not get what you want, you get what you are. You will attract who you are and what you are. So this great gift of your imagination is the first thing. And the imagination is the place within you where you have to go to place into your consciousness, into your mind, what it is that you would like to attract into your life. Whether it's health, and I do this with this leukemia every day. I do not fight it. I'm not angry at it. I invite it to leave if it wants to, but if it wants to stay with me, I invite it to stay with me peacefully and lovingly. And I know that I showed up when I was supposed to, and I will shed this body when I'm supposed to, and I'm not in any fear about when that is supposed to happen. I just am totally at peace with it all of it, okay? So, in your imagination, you have to remember that everything that exists, just look around you. Look at what you're wearing. Look at the chairs that you're sitting on. Look at this building. Look at this screen up here. Look at everything that is taking place in your life. Everything, whatever it is, understand that it first had to be imagined. It started out as a thought. We are all thoughts of God. Now, if you know that everything that ever existed once had to be thought, then you start, and as I used to tell Sky this over and over again, you must contemplate yourself surrounded by the conditions which you wish to have show up in your life. You must contemplate this. Your thoughts in your imagination, you continuously contemplate what it is. You know, the law of flotation was not discovered by the contemplation of the sinking of things. The law of flying, these beautiful machines that fly over and take us all over the world, was not discovered by the contemplation of the staying on the ground of things. It was contemplated by someone or several people who contemplated heavier than air objects moving through the air at a certain speed with wind pushing under that, and that's what they contemplated, and they wouldn't allow themselves. You can't, if you contemplate things not working. I'm on an airplane. And I'm sitting next to a woman who's a photographer on Maui, had just done a wedding and was flying back to San Francisco. And she's got all of this equipment, and I said to her, you're a photographer? Is that what you do? She said, yes. I said, do you like it? She said, yeah. She said, but I'll never get rich at it. I said, would you like to get rich? She said, well, of course, who wouldn't want to get rich? I said, let me see who I'm going to sit next to for the next 5 hours. I'm sitting next to someone who believes that she can't get rich and anticipates that it will never happen for her, even though it's something that you want. Is that what you're saying? We had this, she was very nice talking to her and a very sweet lady. But so often this is what we do. We have thoughts in our head about what we can't do, and then we wonder. I used to give the example of if I gave you $1 million, and I said to you, take this $1 million and go out, and this is your currency to purchase anything that you want, anything at all that you want. And so you go to the mall, and the first store you come into has a group of these ugly old rugs, and you say, I'll take 2 of those. They're $50,000 a piece. And you say, but you don't even like them. I know, send them to my house. And then you look at another store, and they are selling lamps, and the lamps are just hideous looking. And you say, I'll buy 10 of those. That'll be $100,000. And then you get home, and you realize that your house is filled with all of this stuff that you don't want. And you say, how come my whole house is filled with things I don't want? It's because you're crazy. It's because you've been given a currency to attract what you do want, and you put your attention on what you don't want and spend your currency thinking about all the things that you don't want, which is what your thoughts are. You never want to put your attention on what you don't want unless you want to attract what you don't want. You don't ever want to think about what's missing in your life unless you want more of what's missing in your life. You don't even want to think about what is unless you want more of what is to continue showing up in your life. You want to use your imagination to place in your imagination what it is that you would like to attract into your life, and you hold on to it. And that's the secret. It's called having a burning desire. I learned it from Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich. People who are able to attract prosperity into their life have a burning desire, and they never place their thoughts on what they can't have. They just don't think in those ways. Self-actualizing people always place their attention on what is showing up in their life. So the first thing you do is you place in your imagination what you would like to attract into your life, and you hang on to it. The second thing you do is you live from the end instead of about the end. Living from the end means that you act as if what it is that you would like to attract into your life is already here. I suggest, Dan, that you probably did this when you were in the second and third and fourth grade learning to tie your shoes without any hands. That you could always have a pic, because you wouldn't have continued with it if you didn't. You had to have a picture of yourself doing this, even though you didn't know how to do it. In your imagination, you were already doing it. I know this because we've talked about this personally many times. And this is something I'm telling you that I have lived from my entire life. When I wrote Erroneous Zones, I saw it being translated into languages all over the world. I saw people wanting to get it. It was just something that I had a knowing about. Tracy will tell you about it. It was over and over and over again. There was never a thought that this is something that isn't going to work out. I lived from the end. The third thing that you do after you live from the end is that, and this is the most important, I'm going to write an entire book about this, from a great teacher who lived right here in California named Neville, who passed away in the early 1970s. A great lecturer and great teacher. Wrote about something called the power of assumption, that when you assume something to be true, and not only do you assume it to be true, you hold on to it in your imagination, that the assumption of it, if you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Now, I've talked about three things here, and I'm doing this quickly. I could usually do this in several hours with each one of these. In your imagination, you place what it is you would like to attract, how you would like your life to go, whatever it might be. You think from the end. You're always acting as if what it is that you would like to attract, even if it may not have shown up in the physical world for you, you don't even pay attention to that. It's in your imagination, because you know that you can't manifest anything unless you're willing to imagine it, because everything that has ever showed up was once imagined. And then you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And what is the assumption of the feeling of the wish fulfilled? Where do you feel things? You feel it in here. You feel it in your gut. You feel it in your heart. You feel it in your head. You feel it. You assume the feeling of this wish, whatever it is you would like to attract into your life, being fulfilled. You live this way. Some call it living a fantasy. Some think that it's just pie in the sky. Some think it's just being optimistic. It doesn't make any difference. Whatever it is you do with it, your imagination, thinking from the end, and assuming the feeling of this wish fulfilled is a very, very powerful tool for attracting into your life what you want. I've written about it in Excuses Be Gone and in The Power of Attention. The fourth thing that you do, and this is all out crucial, is that when the subject matter comes up of this particular thing that you would like to attract into your life, whenever it comes up, you have two choices. You can either use subjective attention or you can use objective attention. Objective attention is the attention that comes to you from outside of yourself, is objectified outside of you. So you want to get rich. I'll give you an example, a better example. It was this young man, 39-year-old man, came up to me at a mall when I was with Sky and Serena in Los Angeles before the premiere of The Shift, the movie. And he was a chronic stutterer, speech impediment very, very badly. Could barely get words out without halting. Just very difficult. His name was Vincent. Took me 5 minutes to figure that out. So Vincent started talking to me. He recognized me, but he didn't know if he could come up or not, and he had read and seen me on public television and read some of my books, but he'd been stuttering since he was 3 or 4 years old. And I said to him, he asked me if there was anything that I could do to help him. I said, okay, in your imagination, Vincent, I said, can you picture yourself as being free of stuttering? Can you picture yourself in that way? And he said, no. I said, well, then I can't help you. He said, wait. I said, okay, you can go. And we started to turn around. He said, no, wait. He said, okay. He said, I can do that. I said, now I want you to get a picture of yourself as being able to speak without halting. Oh, okay, I can do that in my mind. I said, only in your mind. You don't have to do it physically. It doesn't make any difference because your mind is where everything is created from. Okay. Now, can you live from that end rather than about that end? Well, that was very hard for him to do, but I said, but in your imagination, can you live from the end? He said, yes. I said, now what does that feel like? Picture it. You're living from that faith. Assume the feeling of this wish fulfilled. What does it feel like? And he said, it feels great. I said, I want you to hang on to that feeling. Just hang on to that feeling. Because we do things on the basis of how we're going to feel. If you call my cell phone and you get the message, it says, this is Wayne Dyer that you've reached, and I want to feel good. If your message is designed to do anything other than that, you've reached the wrong number. I suggest you call Dr. Phil. That's what it says. It's been saying that for years. Because feeling good is the same thing. Muktananda, as people would walk into his ashram, and he would say, do you know the difference between good and God? And if they didn't know, he would just do this. 0. There's no difference. Just one little 0 between good and God, one little O. Good and God are the same. Feeling good is the same as feeling God. So I said, Vincent, can you hold on to that? I said, now here comes the test. I said, when the subject matter of your stuttering comes up, what kind of attention are you going to put on it? Objective or subjective? Objective is, you've been stuttering since you were 3 years old. That's 36 years. So you're pretty much stuck with that in your life. What does that do for you? What do you do when you hear that? When you see research studies that say overcoming it after this many years is impossible, what do you do with that? You can return to the place in your imagination where you have already decided to live from that place and just go there. That's called subjective attention. But if you use objective attention, you'll say, oh, they're probably right. I can't do that. It's like the woman next to me saying, I'll never get rich at it. Why not have in your imagination getting rich? And why not every time the subject matter of whether you can get wealthy doing weddings on Maui, for you, in your imagination, you go to the place where it's bringing all the riches that you want. You are content. Objective or subjective. The problem for most people is if they decide they want to lose weight, if they decide they want to attract the right person into their life, if they decide that they want to they listen to all of the negativity that's out there in the world, and they use that negativity to reinforce that they can't do something, and they stop. Instead of going right back to their imagination, you have to be a scurvy elephant on this. You do. The negativity that's out there will permeate. I love this story. I don't know if I can tell it on television, but I'm going to anyway. Told me by my friend Tom Barber. A couple from Nebraska had come to New York where they encountered sort of a New York attitude everywhere they went. And they weren't accustomed to this sort of fast-talking rudeness that they just weren't used to getting. And they were getting all day long, everywhere they went, they were getting it. Finally, it was 4:45, and they still hadn't seen the Empire State Building. And they went up to someone, a New Yorker on the street, and said, excuse me, can you tell us how to find the Empire State Building, or should we just go fuck ourselves? I love that story for some reason. You're going to run into the attitudes that you can't do things over and over again. Particularly, are you going to run into it in your families? But your friends are God's way of apologizing for your relatives, all right? And even with your relatives, you can just not allow their belief that this is something that you can't have happen take you away from what you've already established in your imagination, because once you've established it in your imagination and you've assumed the feeling of the wish fulfilled and you are acting as if this is your life, you start moving to an energy up here, an energy of all things are possible. I call it thinking with awareness. With God, it says in the New Testament, with God, all things are what? Possible. What does that leave out? What does all things are possible leave out? Leaves out nothing, doesn't it? That's the scripture. And that's in virtually all spiritual teachings. When you move and elevate your life to the higher place and become the God within, you're omniscient, you're all-knowing, you're all-powerful. It's in your mind, and you never allow anybody else's opinion to do anything other than take you back to the place in your imagination where it will be fulfilled. Now, the fifth step here is called your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind is a very intriguing thing. If you listen to my friend Bruce Lipton, who will be speaking here this weekend, and he's really terrific. He wrote a book that I promoted on my public television special, The Biology of Belief. It transformed my life because it taught me that even our DNA, even our genetics, the science of epigenetics, is the science where we begin to realize that our thinking, our thoughts, our way of processing and perceiving the world can alter even our genes, our genetic structure. You think a little thing like leukemia is going to stop me when I know that I can change my genetic structure and alter that? It's just another one of those challenges. Who would like a copy of this? Oh, stand up, the lady in green. But you got to catch it. What was that? I just been speaking for 3 hours and you say I might not be able to catch it? It's all those people around you. Oh my goodness, God bless you. Enjoy it. The Biology of Belief. Your subconscious mind is where you do virtually all of the things that you do. Your subconscious mind, it gets programmed, and your subconscious mind, like I'm in London last fall, giving a lecture over there. They picked me up at the hotel, and I have to give a lecture across London, across town. And the guy who picked me up to take me to my talk was from Afghanistan. And he's driving a stick shift, one of those black cabs, okay? And he's got 3 pedals and 2 feet, and going through traffic like you've never seen. London, if you've been in London, but he was even telling me that in 1905, you could get across London faster than you can today with cars. That's how long it takes. Just a lot like the inner city of New York City. But he was whipping around through the different and talking to me about the Pashtuns and what it was like and why the Taliban were doing what they were doing and why I was taking notes. I learned more about Afghanistan than I ever did watching anything on television. All right, and 45 minutes later we pull up there, and not once did the guy ever think about what he was doing. Not once did he think about where his feet were going. Not once did he. And you all do it the same. You get into your car, and who drives your car? Your subconscious mind. You're not thinking like you did when you first learned to drive. I taught driver education for 4 years. When I was first starting out, it was my second job. You have to tell, I would tell the girls, I taught it in all girls schools, I'd say, okay, turn into that driveway over there, and you'd be going along 30 miles an hour. Okay, they turn away. No, you slow down first. And you all know how to do this because your subconscious mind does the driving, right? Your subconscious mind cannot make a distinction between what it is that you are experiencing in your life and what you believe and what you think. It's all the same to your subconscious mind. If your thoughts are on, I can't do something, that's no different than you're not being able to do it physically. If your thoughts are on, I can do it, but your physical body is not able to do it, your subconscious mind starts programming you to, I can do it. You want your subconscious mind to be the driving force in your life so that you get onto automatic pilot and you're always thinking about and attracting into your life the right people, the right events, the right circumstances, because when you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, Neville said, you take these ideas and turn them into concepts. You turn the concepts into conditions, you turn the conditions into circumstances, and you turn the circumstances into objects, and you turn the objects into the facts of your life. You start with the assumption. That's how it works. So your subconscious mind, you've got to remember, you're programming it all the time. I can't do this. It's not possible to do that. These are the reasons why this, and explaining all of the things that have happened to you and shouldn't have happened to you and are happening. That's the subconscious mind at work. Now, I've moved through these steps rather quickly, but I want to take you to the last 5 minutes. And the last 5 minutes of the day, this is tonight, when you get into bed, I want you to start reprogramming your subconscious mind, because it's your subconscious mind that is allowing all of the things to take place in your life that you don't like, that you don't want. So if you get into bed tonight and you know you're going to go to sleep in 5 minutes, do you want to spend the next 5 minutes preparing yourself to marinate for the next 8 hours in I can't do it or I can? Do you want to spend the next 5 minutes preparing yourself to marinate in it's never going to work out for me versus it has to work out for me? Do you want to spend the next 5 minutes thinking about all the reasons why you're unhappy and pissed off? Or do you want to think about the next marinating in the things that are going to bring bliss into your life? Because if you spend the last 5 minutes of your life, of your night, getting ready to marinate in what can't be done, what is wrong, all the things that happened in the last 24 hours that you don't like, all the things that pissed you off about what he said and what she said and how that, and the traffic, and things are never going to work out. If you spend the 5 minutes preparing yourself to go in, because while you're sound asleep, your subconscious mind takes over. And you have 8 hours, you have 1/3 of your life to prepare yourself for how you're going to deal with the rest of your life. What is tomorrow going to look like? Well, if you program yourself as you go off to sleep, reminding yourself of all the things that you don't like, the universe is going to offer you experiences that match up to what you don't like and what you don't want and what is missing and what other people have and you don't. You don't want to use your mind to train your subconscious mind to act like that, because you will align with ordinary rather than with the superconscious. So the last 5 minutes, you have 8 hours you're preparing for. You want to get images. You want to get that higher self, that little thing I talked about several hours ago, where you get that current going between this higher self. And when I meditate, I look up and I use this as I see this higher part of myself. I have my eyes closed and then I look down, and from down I look up. And I'm asking this higher part of me to reach down and get that current going. And if I can do that consistently, I can eliminate this lower self altogether. And ultimately, the highest place is that place where you start to ask the questions. This is the last step. Why didn't it work? So I'm being interviewed by ABC News, and some of you probably saw it. They followed me around for days. They sent people out to Maui. They sent people to Los Angeles. They filmed me in New York. They spent 7-8 hours. I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then they did 4 minutes on the world news on Sunday, the Sunday after Thanksgiving. And all they talked about was my leukemia and why, if what I was saying was true, then I wouldn't have leukemia in my body and you shouldn't listen to me. I just don't ever remember saying that if you listen to me, your body will never, ever break down and you're going to live forever. I don't remember ever saying that, because it isn't whether or not leukemia comes into my body. It's how I process it and what I think about it. And I don't think much about it at all. So the fellow who was interviewing me, his name was Dan Harris. And Dan is about 5'7" or 8, and maybe weighs 140 pounds. And he said, so you're telling me, after listening to me and talking to me and interviewing me, he said, you're telling me that if I follow your advice and do what you're saying about wishes fulfilled, that no matter what, I can become a linebacker for the New York Giants. I said, does that feel natural to you? And he said, no. I said, then it won't work. He said, the degree to which what it is that you put into your imagination, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, program your subconscious mind, the degree to which it will work will depend upon how natural it feels for you. If it doesn't feel natural, If you've been an addict all of your life, if you've been overweight all of your life, it's not going to feel natural to you. You're going to have to work at making it feel natural, and you won't imagine yourself doing things that you're just not going to do in this life. At 5'7" and 140 pounds, the chances of being a linebacker on a professional football are impossible, right? It's just not going to happen. So it doesn't feel natural. So you've got to have it feel natural, okay? Those are the steps. Now I'm going to just take the last 5 minutes, just like tonight when you go to sleep, and I'm going to ask you to take everything off of your lap, if you will, please. And I'd like you to put both of your feet on the floor. I just forgot to mention, we just have a brand new 6 CD set out called Making the Shift, which takes this into much more depth and which is now available, just came out. But I'd like to play for you something that will help you to reach that higher place, that place that I've been speaking about. Remember, if you want to elevate your consciousness, you have to change your concept of yourself. Your concept of yourself is everything you believe to be true, but everything that you believe to be true has gotten you to where you are. You want to believe something new now to be true about yourself. And you do that through the kind of programming that I've been speaking about here the last half hour. And what I'd like to do is play for you a song that was written back in the 18th century by a person who went in a moment of what they call satori, an instant awakening, a visit from Christ consciousness, if you will. Here was a man, John Newton was his name. He was 22 years old, and he was a slave trader. He ran a ship between Senegal in West Africa and Columbia, South Carolina, trading human beings into slavery in this hideous, nefarious practice that was so commonplace in the 17th and 18th centuries all over the planet. And he had the people tied up in knots underneath the holds, and he could hear their wailing and moaning and so on. And as he was crossing, he ran into a storm. It was probably a hurricane. And he really thought that he was going to die. And very often these moments of near death really transform us. And he heard the wailing of a black man underneath the hold. And from that wailing, it is said that he wrote the words to a song on the back of an envelope. I once was lost, and now I'm found. And he called it grace. It was grace that taught my heart to feel. It was grace, he said, that brought me home. Now, it's been sung by many people and many times. You've heard it over and over again, but you've never heard it like this, because it is sung by Cecilia, who has one of the real profound voices, the second most beautiful voice I've ever heard. I better say that. It's true. And I asked her to put together 10 of the songs that really inspire me and that I run my life by. Amazing Grace, Prayer of St. Francis, You Raise Me Up, From a Distance, Ave Maria, Over the Rainbow, I Believe, May It Be, The Rose. Incredibly beautiful music. Her name is Cecilia. She was the first person in the history of the Oslo Conservatory of Music to go through the entire program with a perfect score on all facets of voice. She reaches the 10th octave, and you'll hear it in here. And she's accompanied by the whales, who live right outside my front door on Maui, the humpbacks. They're just leaving. And the sound of these whales, and getting these whales into the sound booth and getting headphones on them, we spared no expense in bringing this to you. But the sounds of the whales are sounds that I hear every day in the 6 months that they are there, because you can go under the water, you can actually hear them talking to each other with these great sounds. And this piece of music I have in my car, it can move the traffic. It's a way to get that current going between the higher and the lower self. So, ladies and gentlemen, Cecilia, accompanied by the whales, singing John Newton's Amazing Grace. And I want you to know that when the storm passed, John Newton returned to Africa, freed all of the people that were in the holds, returned to Bristol in England, and for the next 55 years became the most ardent spokesman for for the abolition of slavery. It happened in one moment. So here it is, found. And it was grace that taught my heart to feel. You were touched by that. I'd like to give you a copy of it. Would you like this? There you go, for you. And here's my daughter's CD, You Inspire Me, as well. So we've come to the end. The words of Patanjali ring in my ears as I was listening to that beautiful rendition of Cecilia. When you are inspired by some great purpose, some extraordinary project, all of your thoughts break their bonds. Your mind transcends limitations. Your consciousness expands in every direction. And you find yourself in a new and a great and a wonderful world. Dormant forces, faculties, and talents come alive. And you discover yourself to be a greater person by far than you ever dreamed yourself to be. Because in every moment, ladies and gentlemen, of your life, you have this choice. You can either be a host to God or a hostage.